So here's a number that should be in the front page of every financial newspaper in the world. 450 billion US dollars. That is how much the World Bank estimates Africa would add to its income by 2035. Not from foreign aid, not from extraction of its natural resources, not from debt, but a single trade agreement that was signed by 49 African countries and is already generating commercial traction. That agreement is called the African Continental Free Trade Area, the AfCFTA for short. By the number of participating countries alone, it is the single largest free trade zone in the world. 54 out of the 55 AU members have already signed on to this, covering 1.4 billion people and a combined GDP of 3.4 billion US dollars. The World Bank 2026 African Economic Updates says that the AfCFTA could raise incomes by 7 to 9% and is estimated to lift up to 40 million people out of extreme poverty from a single trade agreement. Not a charity, not a development fund, but a single trade agreement. Because trade is what actually builds economies. And this is the framework Africa is adopting to build its economy. And here's the thing. Most people in the diaspora have not heard of AfCFTA. And almost nobody understands how it works. What it does, what is already happening, and what it means for their investment decisions, and their understanding of where the continent is going. That changes today. My name is Abdul Fattah, and welcome back to our Agenda 2063 series. So why does the AfCFTA exist? Currently, trade between African countries accounts for only 15 to 80% of Africa's total trade. Compare that with more than 60% in Asia and more than 70% in Europe. So why does African countries trade among themselves to a lesser extent compared to our European and Asian counterparts? I mean, if we look at this, there's multiple reasons why this is happening. I'm sure if you've ever traveled within Africa, you know how it's not easy to cross borders, especially if you're traveling by road. So, high restrictions within border areas in Africa contributes to this. Tariffs between African countries contribute to this. Currency conversions and custom delays also contributes to this. And this is not a geographical issue. It's the legacy of an economic system that was built in the colonial era to move resources out of Africa and to move manufactured products into Africa. That is, Africa never rebuilt after gaining their independence to move goods between African countries. And the AfCFTA was the redesign to fix this. And it's the biggest economic plan Africa has built in a very long time. So what does the AfCFTA do? Let me explain how it actually works. Because big numbers mean nothing if you don't understand the how. The AU broke this down into 4 main pillars, and we'll go over each of these pillars. So the first pillar, which is the baseline, is tariff elimination. That is import fees elimination. The second pillar is to harmonize standards, meaning one rule book and one approval for all, allowing goods to be accepted and welcome everywhere. The third pillar is digital trade, building Africa's internet economy. And before we talk about the fourth pillar, I would like to highlight some of the details involved in this first three. So the core commitment is the continuous removal of fees or tariffs on almost all African goods between the member states or the member countries that have signed to this agreement. As of 2026, the African countries have agreed on a system to check where products are coming from, to make sure that only the real made in African products get the cheaper fees. That is, only the made in African products are exempted from these tariffs. And per the World Bank breakdown of this estimate of 450 billion US dollars, only 1/3 of it is estimated to come from dropping of tariffs among African countries, meaning the majority, 2/3, comes from other areas. And these areas are sectors that make trading among other African countries easier. So if you're able to cut paperwork that is involved in crossing borders, if you're able to make borders crossing easier or customs verification easier, these are the sectors where the majority of this revenue will be generated. And this breakdown matters a lot for an investor and entrepreneur, because it means that the majority of the income is actually from providing services that makes trading easier. Services like moving goods between African countries, so for example, a trucking company. Digital tools that makes custom verifications easier, and digital platforms or apps that makes online trading safer and more efficient. And services that makes payment between individuals in different African countries easier. So for example, the PAPSS system, which we will talk about soon, and services like transportation insurance, or lawyers who are able to understand the rules involved in trading between different African countries. These are services that will help make the trade more smoothly and more efficient. So if you're interested in investing in Africa right now, I would say these are some of the sectors that you should look into, because the opportunity is definitely real. I'm sure we've all, heard about the complaints that people make when they're traveling within Africa. The longer custom checks that takes hours, the currency conversions that cost fees, and the verification of products that goes through multiple paperwork. So the ability to standardize these things, make them more efficient, would not only be a great investment for an individual, but also for the continent. So let's talk about the fourth pillar, the PAPSS, or the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. So what the system is designed to do is basically to cut the middleman when a trade is occurring between two individuals from different African countries. So before, a Ghanaian trader who needed a product in Kenya would have to pay the amount in cedis, which will then be converted to US dollars, and then it goes to a United States bank where it is then converted again to Kenyan shillings for that trader. So not only would this cause a delay in the transaction, but each of these stops is an added fee for the individual. So what the PAPSS system is designed to do is basically to cut the middleman and allow for a more efficient and effective trading. And of course, it will be cheaper also for the traders involved. And this payment system is already on board. About 150 banks are connected to it. About 13 of African central banks have already signed on to it. Banks including Access Bank, Zenith Bank, just to mention a few. And once everyone starts using this payment system, it is estimated to save Africa about $5 billion annually, just from eliminating the fee payments involved in currency conversions using the third-party system. And here are the real numbers. All of Africa's buying and selling have grew by a 13.9% in 2024, totaling an estimate of $1.5 trillion. African countries buying and selling from each other hit a record $220 billion. And of course, the AfCFTA started off with a pilot program, which started in 2022. It was so successful that from 7 countries that started it, it grew to 39 countries in Africa. And they have moved from this pilot program to the full-on program currently, which is in effect. Rwanda started selling processed coffee to Ghana. Tanzania started selling processed coffee to Algeria, and rope fiber to Nigeria. And these are not just raw materials anymore. These are actual finished products which are being sold between African countries using this payment system. And currently, there's a new rule that states that cars made in Africa have to use 40% of the body parts that are made in Africa. And all this is, of course, to push trade between African countries. And with all these amazing empty promises of this program, of course, there are hidden problems that still need to be tackled. Currently, there's still too much wait time during the border crossings in Africa. A truck crossing a border in Africa is estimated to have a wait time of about 126 hours. That is almost 5 days in waiting just from crossing one border, compared to Europe, which is less than half of this wait time. This excess wait time is almost double what the average wait time is in the rest of the world. And of course, cutting tariffs means nothing if the goods cannot get across the border. And the second problem with this, which is again just due to kind of lack of awareness and what I like to consider a failure in proper advertisement of these programs, is that most small and medium-sized enterprises do not know about this system. They do not know how to set up. They do not know how to use a payment system. They do not know how to get cheaper rates using the standardized goods system in Africa, or how to prove that their products are truly made in Africa. And of course, the third problem and final problem this system currently faces is that it's not as efficient and as effective as it should be yet. Currently, we still need more countries to sign on, still need more leadership from African governments, and of course more investments in the roads, in the trucks, in the customs processings, and the other services that are needed to make this more efficient. So what does this mean for you if you're a diaspora watching this right now? Or even if you are within Africa but wants to participate in this opportunity. If you're an entrepreneur in the continent, before building a business meant you're building it for just the one country. But now with the AfCFTA, you are reaching an estimated market of 1.4 billion people. But you need to do your homework. Find out if your product gets cheaper trading fees. Learn the rules for proving that your product is truly made in Africa. Of course, this is the AfCFTA Secretariat website, and look up their e-tariff book. And if you're an investor, there's plenty of opportunities in Africa currently to invest. Plenty of areas that are not being looked into. So the competition is even less. For example, trucking companies or warehouses for storage of products. Digital payment and financial system are also areas that are not as highly invested in as of this point. Food processing and manufactured goods, and of course cold storage during transport of these goods so they do not go to waste. These are all areas of potential investments and mostly are untapped. And if you're a professional in the continent, being able to hone your skills to be able to be competent across borders in Africa would be a great tool to have, because currently these tradings need people that can regulate them and people that understand the laws and the rules involved in each country. So let me know in the comments down below, what business or investment idea do you currently have within the continent that the AfCFTA would help make easier or viable? Not a general interest, but a specific idea or a specific business that you think would thrive in this current market with the AfCFTA. And of course, as always, let us know in the comments if you heard of the AfCFTA before today or how it works. Also, let us know where you are tuning in from. We'd like to keep the comments engaging, and we'd like to build this community mainly for the purpose of investments, but also for conversations. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe and like, and keep us engaged in the comments. Thank you.